Howdy, viewers and gamers alike out there, and welcome to a special live stream here on Leo's Let's Plays Alliance exclusive only. And if you already noticed about the title name, well, guess what? Well, it's true. So guess what it is? It's the NCAA March Madness 2025, and about my commentary here. So yes, I've never done a commentary about NCAA March Madness, but I know I mentioned it on some live streams before about college men's basketball, and it was awesome. Because it really is. And I absolutely enjoyed it. I really do enjoy it. And so, some of the games I've looked upon at is just, it was quite interesting. So without further ado, I thought I might dive into something. It's like, what are we going to talk about today? I don't know. I mean, perhaps I might try something that I've never done. I mean, I usually talk about Special Olympics very much indeed. So, in point of fact, I have seen like the first 4 games, which would be on Tuesday and Wednesday. Games on Tuesday. St. Francis versus Alabama State. St. Francis out of Pennsylvania, and Alabama State, which is home of the Hornets. And then you see UNC, North Carolina Tar Heels, and the San Diego State Aztecs. And then on a Wednesday, Mount St. Mary's and American University. Then you see the Xavier Musketeers and the Texas Longhorns. First 8 in and the last 4 out. I mean, because of the last 4, they didn't qualify. And because of those last 4 out of here, or the last 4 in or the first 4 out, have to go to the NIT tournament instead. It was a really difficult decision. So the game between St. Francis and Alabama State, that game was like, my gosh, it was really hard. It was a close game. It was an absolute close game. And I see the whole thing. I saw the whole kit and caboodle. That was an interesting game to watch, and it did not fail me. I'll tell you that. It did not fail me. Then Alabama State won by 2 points in the first round, in the first 4 against St. Francis out of Pennsylvania, number 16 seeded team. Who is the true number 16 seeded team? The winner of that match will face the Auburn Tigers. That'll be in the first round, but I'm going to get to that later on. And then the second game, both games of the first 4 were on True TV. It was on True TV exclusive only. It was not on TBS, CBS, and TNT just yet. But we were getting to it. So UNC and San Diego State both say they are number 11 seeded teams. The question is, who is the true number 11 seeded team? The number 11 seeded team will be facing the Ole Miss Rebels on Friday. The same thing for that team, what I previously talked about, St. Francis and Alabama State, a game on Thursday. So here we go. And you know what? The Tar Heels just dominated over the San Diego State Aztecs. So East meets West. The East Coast team meets the West Coast team. And the West Coast team didn't dominate so well despite making it into the Final Four. And now into the first four and losing to the North Carolina Tar Heels, which is just not a great way to start off. The score was not even close. So the score was UNC 95, San Diego State 68. It was an embarrassment. I mean, and you call yourself a team to go up? I mean, you gotta play at the best at the peak of your level. I mean, you can't just fall asleep at the wheel. But St. Francis and Alabama State, they did not. St. Francis out of Pennsylvania. I don't know what city, but they didn't fail. The St. Francis Red Flash out of Pennsylvania. My gosh, I mean, it is just absolutely amazing. And that happened in Dayton, Ohio, which is incredible. And now you got two more games that are on True TV, exclusive only. Both teams are number 16 seeded teams. Is Mount St. Mary's Mountaineers and the American Eagles, American University. I don't know where they are from, but when it comes to schools like this, you get the feeling that that they are absolutely incredible. The American Eagles basketball team. So guess what? The true number 16 seeded team will face the Duke Blue Devils, and that was on a Friday. So guess what? Mount St. Mary's won that game. Now they're a pretty good team. And now we move on to the next game, is the Xavier Musketeers out of the Big East Conference versus the Texas Longhorns of the Southeastern Conference. Was the Big 12 Conference and now a Southeastern Conference. Yes, when it comes to Texas, everything's bigger in Texas. It's true. You have the Southeastern Conference, Conference USA, the Sun Belt, and you also have, my gosh, the Big 12 Conference. Yes, the Big 12 Western Athletic Conference. My goodness, you name it. Attack the WAC. The score, usually I saw the whole game, and Texas was in the lead. They were in the lead in the first half, and somehow the Xavier Musketeers came up inching closer, and then all of a sudden, the Texas Longhorns are starting to lose momentum, not only on offense, but also on defense. And guess what happened? They've fallen behind, and just like that, the Xavier Musketeers took the lead. And all of a sudden, the Texas Longhorns, going to the big dance they were, and got eliminated by the Xavier Musketeers. And guess what happens? They are now, you lose one game, no matter what round you're in, whether it's the first four, the first round, the second round, the Sweet 16, the Elite Eight, the Final Four, you are gone. You lose one game any along the way, and you're gone. You win, you keep on going. Lose, and your season is over. You are gone. And guess what? The Xavier Musketeers won, and the Texas Longhorns lost. And despite having a great basketball team, it was not enough. And losing to the Xavier Musketeers is not a great feeling. That a team from the Big East winning over the Southeastern Conference team, and it just can't pull through. Wow, wow, wow. Mount St. Mary's, it's just, it was just unbelievable. And that team will be facing the Duke Blue Devils. So, yes. And then now we move on to, okay, so, and I do notice a little bit of news about what happened while during the time and effort for the Texas Longhorns. They kind of fired their head coach who was the head coach of the Texas Longhorns of college men's basketball, and then it was ugly, and it did not go. It didn't bode well. It really did not bode well. I'll give you that, because you want to know why. When you lose a team that's incredibly talented, and you couldn't stick it or try to hang on by a silver lining, you get the idea. And if only you could have done more, you should have realized if there is a possibility that you can do something to do more, but instead, it just didn't go your way. It just didn't go your way. I mean, it was the most absolute shot down. It was gone. My gosh, you cannot waste an opportunity. If you're a team that you're playing up ahead, and then all of a sudden you're trying to come back. You are trying to come back. You don't want to lose because because it feels like your job is on the line. Your job is on the line, because if you know that your job is on the line because you couldn't win one game in the first four, then guess what happens next? You're in the hot seat, and because of that, you're in the hot seat. You lost the game because you were pulling up ahead, and then all of a sudden you couldn't get to it then. And if only you could have done more. If only you could have done more. And if you're like a head basketball coach, you need to realize when it comes to doing something to done more, your team could have won, but instead your team didn't win. You were like ahead in the first half, and then all of a sudden you've fallen out of favor in the second half. I mean, what's going on? It is just absolutely a blown cover. You've blown the cover, and all of a sudden you couldn't win? I mean, despite having the record, I mean, I'm not saying it's a losing record. I mean, the record's not great, I'll give you that. But when you have a record such as this, you need to understand that if you get that record and squeeze yourself into the first four, you can be assured it's like, oh, we got ourselves a real pigeon. No sweat, my friend. 8-3 all the way. Okay, 8-3 all the way. But then all of a sudden, it didn't go your way now, did it? Because guess what? You were pulling up ahead all of a sudden, and then you took the gas pedal off of your foot because you couldn't win. And now your job is on the line, and all of a sudden you got fired because you didn't get the win, because you're beating a team that's a mid-major school or somewhat, because this team has an excellent basketball program than you, because I'm not saying your basketball program stinks. No, your basketball program's great. It's because if only you could have done more, then you wouldn't have your job on the line. But instead, your job was on the line, and guess what happens next? And there goes your job, and there goes your something, and you know what? That's what happens when you realize you should have done anything more. All I can say is, if only you would have done better than your best. You could have done better than your best if you're a head coach of a basketball team, but no, I didn't see it happening. You only could have done better than your best. And so that's what happens when you're in the hot seat. You will be fired, whatever the consequences that may be in. And it's not going to go or bode well for you. Because if you lose, and despite not being in the first round, but even though you're in the first four, but I suggest when it comes to the first four, you can understand of how this is going to end up. And guess what? It ended up pretty nice. It ended up real good, I think. But if you don't want to take my word for it, that's fine by me. I mean, it shows itself of what happened. And I can assure you, if only it did not happen, but it did. So guess what? You lost. And that team, so the Xavier Musketeers, and that team will be, as a number 211 seeded team, will be facing the Fighting Illini on a Friday on March 21st. And guess what? The Xavier Musketeers got the win, and they're facing the Fighting Illini. And now everything is going to come wild from the first and the second round. It is madness. It is crazy. You cannot understand, or you cannot comprehend, but you can understand. So, Alabama State and Auburn. Of course, the score, Alabama State, the Hornets, were trying to come up with a big win, but it was not enough to overcome the Auburn Tigers. And that happened on games on Thursday, March 20th. And that would be this. Alabama State, 63. Auburn Tigers, 83. And they move on to the second round. And then you have the Creighton Blue Jays and the Louisville Cardinal. Who's going to fly? Who is the true bird? The Blue Jays or the Cardinals? The Creighton Blue Jays out of Omaha, Nebraska, or the Louisville Cardinals out of Louisville, Kentucky. And guess what happens next? And you're not going to believe what's going to happen next. The Blue Jays were flying over the Louisville Cardinals from the University of Louisville, and guess what happened? They did it by almost a 15-point margin. Creighton 89, Louisville 75. All right, it's time to go directly to Yale, not jail, Yale, because I will not pass go and I will not collect $200 with this team. But guess what? I'm going to do it anyways. So the Yale Bulldogs and the Texas A&M Aggies. So the Aggies and the Bulldogs. So despite the best efforts of the Yale Bulldogs from the East Coast, and then you have the Texas A&M Aggies out of College Station, Texas, in the Texas tropics. The Aggies have definitely overcame the Yale Bulldogs. Yale 71, Texas A&M 80. Now, here's an interesting game. UC San Diego Tritons and the Michigan Wolverines. And this was an absolute close game. This was an absolute close game. My goodness. I never thought I'd see that the UC San Diego Tritons absolutely played their best. They're usually, remember when I say the low-seeded teams, sometimes the low-seeded, well, I do mention this, but I will say this to you. Sometimes the biggest surprises come in the smallest packages from low-seeded teams, and UC San Diego is one of those teams. They came this close. This was an absolute close game. They tried to tie the game up, and somehow the Michigan Wolverines hang on by a thread, and it was just, wow. It is just absolutely incredible. And that game took place in Denver, Colorado, Thursday, March 20th. It was big. It was absolutely tremendous. And you cannot believe how did this game go. And it was just absolutely amazing. And you know what? It is just phenomenal. The score was absolutely close. It was so close. It was unbelievably close, and you can and you cannot believe they're playing absolute offense and defense. I cannot say anything that's better than this. So the USC San Diego Tritons 65, Michigan Wolverines 68, winning by 3. I would say UC San Diego Tritons, they are an absolute dominant best as a low-seeded team, despite losing. But I would say if they'll be back next season to go for NCAA March Madness again, I would say they should. They will come back again next year, better, and facing a high-seeded team. You can bet this UC San Diego Tritons are definitely the answer for you. I mean, give credit to UC San Diego Tritons, but the Michigan Wolverines, wow, these two teams have played their heart out. UC San Diego has left everything on the court. They not only did their best, they did their better. They did their best, or they're better than their best. And you know what? Congratulations to UC San Diego. I mean, you made it to the big dance, but being eliminated by the Michigan Wolverines, oh wow, you are one of the top teams to have as a low-seeded team, because some low-seeded teams that would come in the high caliber from the biggest surprises in the smallest packages. And it was just absolutely amazing. So as we continue on Thursdays, so here comes the Arkansas Razorbacks and the Kansas Jayhawks. an upset victory. The Jayhawks are trying to go back into the Sweet 16 or the second round, but they just couldn't because the Razorbacks out of Arkansas, guess what? It's sweet, pick, all the way to winning it all. 79-72 is your final score. Upset victory. The Kansas Jayhawks out of Lawrence, Kansas are going home, and it comes to the end of their season, losing to a low-seeded team like Arkansas, because a team like Arkansas, do not mess with them, even though they have a southern accent. Yes, hillbilly country. You can be certain when it comes to Arkansas, you don't mess with the Razorbacks or the hillbillies. And that goes to show you it's really, really good. And so we have another team, a low-seeded team, the Omaha Mavericks out of Omaha, Nebraska, and St. John's Red Storm, a pretty good basketball team. And you know what happens next? Well, the high-seeded team, St. John's, and, low-seeded team, Omaha Mavericks. I thought these two teams are going to have a great matchup, but to be honest, the score was not even close. And for that, it was just a disaster for one team. Omaha Mavericks 53, St. John's 83. It's like, what? Yeah, I know. I mean, this is an absolute embarrassment. You made it to the big dance, and you're losing to a high-seeded team for a team who is better than you? I mean, that is a shocker. I don't know what's going on, but you know what? This is just absolutely downtrodden. But I mean, you have a great team. If only you could have done more. Despite to put up so many points. You put up like at 50 points, but St. John's offense is just so explosive. They just can't stop. There is no off button. They just keep on going like the Energizer Bunny. And that's why they don't call them the Red Storm for nothing. And guess what? And they absolutely won. And there's nothing you can do about it. And so for that, they took the W, winning by a landslide victory. And like I said, the score was not even close. Okay, and now here comes another team. Number 11 Drake Bulldogs. I don't know where they're from, but I know it's a University of Drake, versus the Missouri Tigers out of the Southeastern Conference, out of Columbia, Missouri. And you know what? I'm gonna say this. When I mentioned about low-seeded teams before, is when it comes to the biggest those low-seeded teams with high caliber come in the biggest surprises and the smallest packages. Drake University, as a number 11 seeded team, defeated a big major conference school, and that is the Missouri Tigers out of Columbia, Missouri. And the score was kind of interesting. A low score, but it was all about the defense more than the offense. And to be honest, it really surprised me of the Drake Bulldogs back on Thursday, March 20th. So the final score is this. Drake Bulldogs 67, Missouri Tigers 57. Winning by 10, the Drake Bulldogs as a low-seeded team move on to the next round, into the second round, and the Missouri Tigers unbelievably lose to the likes of the Drake Bulldogs. Yeah, big surprises come in the smallest packages. And here comes UNC Wilmington Seahawks. Yes, Wilmington. That's in North Carolina. UNC Wilmington Seahawks. And yes, the city of Wilmington itself is in the eastern tropics. Only about a small part of North Carolina is in the tropics because there's tropical palm trees because I seen it before. It's on the pictures there. So you're just gonna say, no, there is no tropical palm trees, liar! You're lying! Oh yeah? Look in the map, genius! And check on Google Maps, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Then who's going to be lying about there are no tropical palm trees in UNC Wilmington, or the home of the Seahawks? So yeah, good. They have a nice record, but it was just not enough to overcome the Texas Tech Red Raiders out of Lubbock, Texas. The final score is UNC Wilmington Seahawks 72, Texas Tech Red Raiders 82, and they move on to the next round. They had a great season in a long time. They had a great season in a long time, I'll give you that. And now we move on to, let's see. More Thursday games. The Montana Grizzlies out of the Big Sky Conference versus the Wisconsin Badgers out of the Big Ten Conference. Big Sky versus Big Ten. Of course, the score itself was not even close, once again, as I see it with my own eyes. The Grizzlies out of Montana, in the state of Montana, the Treasure State, just couldn't come up to make a comeback. The final score, Montana Grizzlies 66, Wisconsin Badgers 85 out of Madison, Wisconsin, and they move on to the next round. And here's another team from March. Yeah, a bunch of Thursday games out of March. The VCU Rams and the BYU Cougars. VCU Rams, it's like they're usually a team that's a sleeper as a really great basketball team. And somehow they're starting to fall out of favor. And all of a sudden, it was back and forth by these two teams. And somehow one of these two teams is going to come out on top. And guess who came out on top? VCU 71, BYU 80. And VCU season comes to an end, and the BYU Cougars out of Provo, Utah, moves on to the second round. And guess what? They move on to the second round. More Thursday games. And check this out. The Wofford Terriers and the Tennessee Volunteers. Somehow the Wofford Terriers try to overcome the Tennessee Volunteers out of Knoxville, Tennessee, who is a members of the SEC Conference. But it wasn't enough. Wofford Terriers 62, Tennessee Volunteers 77. They move on to the second round, and they have... Here's another game to watch, and it's the Utah State Aggies and the UCLA Bruins. I remember that the Bruins made it to the Final Four, and they were like an excellent team. An excellent team to be dominant in such a way. A Mountain West Conference team versus up on an Atlantic Coast Conference team. So guess what happens? Despite having a great record, it was the most embarrassing game I have ever seen of my entire life. Not even close. And since the score was not even close, it's likely it's game over by one team. It's just an absolute embarrassment. You can't lose to a team that you got embarrassed because you lost. The final score: Utah State Aggies 47, UCLA Bruins 72. I mean, what is that? The scoreboard not even close, and you're saying that you can't win? You just got embarrassed because you have a great basketball team and a great record because you couldn't pull out the win? The Utah State Aggies made it to the Sweet 16 back then, or the second round, but this is an absolute embarrassment. I mean, really? You can't lose. The Utah State Aggies, they're from Logan, Utah, northern Utah. Same thing for the BYU Cougars out of Provo, Utah, in northern Utah, right next to Orem. And then all of a sudden, you lost to a team that is just absolutely better than you? Oh my goodness. It's almost like the team that tried to play on offense and defense is almost non-existent, and it's just, it was a disaster. It was an absolute disaster. You can't do that. You seriously cannot just all of a sudden you're going to give up because the team that you are playing against is a lot better than you, and because of that, you absolutely failed. I mean, come on, man. I don't know what's going on with you. You're not supposed to fail or to lose, but instead, you lost to a team who's better than you, and it's just an absolute embarrassment. You can't not do that. But instead, it happened. It really happened. And there is no way you cannot fix your mistake, because when you cannot fix your mistake, you cannot go back in time. And because you cannot go back in time, it already happened. Because why? Because you couldn't play the better and your best against a high-seeded caliber team, because that high-seeded caliber team is better. I mean, really? What is up with that? Really? I mean, can you imagine what is going on? It is heartbreaking when it comes to a team and you're like, I think we got ourselves embarrassed by a team that we couldn't be able to defeat. And some low-seeded teams, you need to play better. Don't play sloppy basketball. Play better basketball and turn up the engines and turn up the afterburners. I don't care. The early burners, afterburners, I don't care. Just do or do not. Do or do not. There is no try. It was just, wow. Another one of the most embarrassing moments to see a game such for that couldn't come up with a big win. Okay, now here's another game on Thursday. High Point and Purdue. So the High Point Panthers and the Purdue Boilermakers. High Point Panthers They try to make a comeback against the Purdue Boilermakers, but somehow the Purdue Boilermakers gave their run for their money. The final score, High Point Panthers 63, Purdue Boilermakers 75. And this year of 2025, and yes, what up? They move on to the next round, into the second round. I'll tell you this, High Point Panthers got a run for Purdue for their money. And now here's another game. Another upset victory. And this game was really close. This game was really close. And it was back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And that is a game you don't want to miss. A must-see to watch. The McNeese State Cowboys versus the Clemson Tigers. The biggest surprises come in the smallest packages, which I mentioned previously. And guess what happens? McNeese State Cowboys 69, Clemson Tigers 67. A low-seeded team overcame a high-seeded team who was number 5 in that bracket, winning by 2. The Cowboys are riding off to the win and into the second round. And the Cowboys, because it's like David versus Goliath. David beat Goliath. Goliath goes down getting hit by a rock. The Clemson Tigers are eliminated, going home at the end of their season. The Cowboys move on to the next second round. Wow. That is a team, like I said, low-seeded teams have the biggest surprises in the smallest packages, and those low-seeded teams are one of them to overcome a high-seeded team, such as from a big major school. Now here's another game. SIU Edwardsville. SIU Edwardsville, home of the Cougars, as well as the Houston Cougars. So, of course, this scoreboard was not even close at all. And it was just the most absolutely embarrassment. Who is the bigger and better feline? And I would say Houston was. The final score, 40 for SIU Edwardsville. Houston 78. They have liftoff with the victory, and it's almost a 40-point game, and another embarrassment from a low-seeded team that you can't lose to. If you're a low-seeded team, you can't play just sloppy basketball, but instead, you may have the offense, but your defense is lacking because the Houston Cougars are saying either we're that good or someone else stinks. And I don't know what just happened. Houston, you have liftoff in the next round. And guess what, Houston? You have liftoff. Hooray! For 78-40, and another embarrassment. It's like either do or do not, because there is no try, because it seems like a team a team that has scored only 40 points just gave up all of a sudden. It's just embarrassing. And a final Thursday game, and here's one, is the Georgia Bulldogs and the Gonzaga Bulldogs. A team out of the Southeastern Conference and a team from the West Coast Conference. Who is the top dog? And the top dog is the Gonzaga Bulldogs out of the West Coast Conference out of Spokane, Washington. So guess what? The final score, Georgia 68, Gonzaga 89. And guess who won? The Gonzaga Bulldogs. The top dog winning over the better dog. I guess when you're being the big dog, you need to know how to be the big dog instead of the little dog or the little puppy. And I'm more of a cat person than a dog person. But just because I say I'm more of a cat person than a dog person doesn't mean I hate dogs. No, 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 no. I like dogs. I'm just more of a cat person, okay? uh, uh, the Gonzaga moves on to the next round. Oh, now the game's on Friday. So UNC, they defeated the San Diego State Aztecs, but couldn't overcome the Ole Miss Rebels. And despite a great effort, UNC loses to the Ole Miss Rebels in a score of 64-71. Ole Miss move on to the next round. So despite having a great basketball program, it was just not enough for the Tar Heels to stay alive. Now here we go, and there's Lipscomb and the Lipscomb Bisons and the Iowa State Cyclones. The score itself was not even close. Lipscomb just couldn't come up to solve the problems on the Iowa State Cyclones out of the Big 12 Conference team. Out of Ames, Iowa. The final score, like I said, it's not even close. Lipscomb Bisons 55, Iowa State Cyclones 82. The Iowa State Cyclones move on to the second round. And the Lipscomb Bisons come to the end of their season, which is, I can't believe how that happened. Oh. Now here's another team to look upon. New Mexico Lobos and the Marquette Golden Eagles. The Marquette Golden Eagles are a high-caliber seeded team. Despite being number 7, they know they do not want to lose. The Marquette Golden Eagles out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And somehow the New Mexico Lobos had a great basketball team. And guess what happens? A low-seeded team, from the biggest surprises in the smallest packages, it happened again. New Mexico Lobos 75, Marquette Golden Eagles 66. The Lobos move on to the second round, and the Golden Eagles season comes to an end. That is what happens. Now here's a score. Here's another game. Oh, that was on Friday. The Bryant Bulldogs and the Michigan State Spartans. Bryant Bulldogs. I don't know where they're from. I know it's a university. Bryant University. Michigan State Spartans. That's something to look upon. And guess what happens? I would say the score is not by much. Bryant Bulldogs 62, Michigan State Spartans 87, and the Spartans move on to the next round. Way to go, Sparta! Oh. Now here is another game. The Colorado State Rams and the Memphis Tigers. Memphis Tigers out of Conference USA. Colorado State Rams of the Mountain West Conference team. I never thought the Colorado State Rams out of Fort Collins, Colorado. That's a really good team. Once again, another big surprise in the smallest package, and that would be this team. Colorado State Rams 78, Memphis Tigers 70. Rams move on to the next round as a Mountain West Conference team, and that is a mid-major school that's not to be underestimated. Wow. And here's another game. It's the Grand Canyon Antelopes out of Phoenix, Arizona, and the Maryland Terrapins. Of course, this game was not even close, and this was an absolute embarrassment It's just, I'm sorry. It's just an absolute embarrassment. You cannot falter. When this happens, you lose, and all of a sudden, because you lose, you can't just, wow. I'm sorry. I don't know what to say. The score was not even close. Grand Canyon Antelopes 49, Maryland Terrapins 81. The team out of the Western Athletic Conference losing to a team out of the Big Ten, and it is just terrible. It is so terrible. You have teams who are at their best, at the peak of their best, at that school conference. When you are a school conference, you play at your best and don't lose to a team such as a high caliber seeded team like this team right here. But if you're that team there, because all of a sudden you have the offense, but you lack the defense because you couldn't overcome this team. Wow. I mean, come on, man. You are a basketball team, a great basketball team program out of this conference, but all of a sudden you couldn't make it stick. That is embarrassing. Until next year, please try to solve all the defensive problems. I know you want offensive and you know how to work on the offense, but get to work on the defense and offense at the same time. Ay, mama. And also this score is not even close. The Norfolk State Spartans and the Florida Gators. So, not even close for the Norfolk State Spartans. Norfolk State Spartans 69, Florida Gators 95. It's another embarrassing effort. A team that's so much better, and you just can't overcome a high caliber seeded team, and that is the Florida Gators. I know, there's a first time for everything, but when you learn from about your mistakes, is to never repeat those same mistakes ever again. And it is for the better. Now here comes, I'm going to move on. It's just embarrassing. I just can't believe what I witnessed and what I saw. It's just downtrodden. Okay, so here's another team to look upon. Mount St. Mary's and Duke. We know that Mount St. Mary's overcame the likes of the American Eagles, the Mountaineers of Mount St. Mary's, but they cannot overcome the Duke Blue Devils because of this. You call yourself a great team, which I know you are, but losing to the Blue Devils out of Duke from next to Chapel Hill of it's North Carolina, and it is just like, what? Okay, Mount St. Mary's Mountaineers 49, the Duke Blue Devils 93. The score was not even close. The game is going to be actually over in the second half. It's like, okay, forget about this game. This is an absolute embarrassment. It's do or do not. You do or do not do your best, or do your better than your best. Don't do your best or do your best. Do or do not. There is no try, and look what happened. That team just fell apart and losing in the first round, and that is the Duke Blue Devils, and they move on to the second round, and it's just an absolute embarrassment. You learn from the mistakes. Don't repeat the same mistakes. Learn how to play at the peak of your level, because when it comes to this, and when you play and when you're facing the struggles, and when you play out of the best caliber, This is what it means to play at the best of your caliber, and that is what it means. And here comes another game. The Baylor Bears out of Waco, Texas, and the Mississippi State Bulldogs. So a Big 12 conference team and a Southeastern Conference team. And this game was an absolute close. A number 9 seeded team versus number 8 seeded team. And the score was close. I mean, one team tries to tie this game up, but comes up short. The final score, Baylor Bears 75, Mississippi State Bulldogs 72. The Baylor Bears move on to the next round. That is an absolute close game, and the Baylor Bears have won it. Moving on to the second round, and they have done it. They have done it. Oh my. What a team. What a team. What a team. That is a game to be a must watch. I know it's on YouTube and on the highlights and the recap. And here's another one. This game was not even close. The Akron Zips and the Arizona Wildcats. Akron Zips. So a Mid-American Conference team versus a Big 12 conference team. So, Akron Zips 65, Arizona Wildcats out of Tucson, Arizona 93. I know Akron, Akron, Ohio. I mean, where's the name? The clue is in the name. Yeah, that's another embarrassment. And when you please, when you want to play your best, don't try to fall behind so badly because when it comes to this, defense wins championships. The best offense is defense. And there you go. And here comes another game. And this is also not even close. Liberty University, home of the Flames and the Oregon Ducks. And like I said, this game is not even close. The final score, Liberty Flames 52, Oregon Ducks out of Eugene, Oregon 81. And the Ducks move on to the next round as a Big 10 conference team. Oregon Ducks, yes. Wow, it's ay mama. Yeah. I just find it embarrassing. And here's another game. Robert Morris, Colonials. I don't know what city they're from, but I'm guessing somewhere from the mid-Atlantic states or the northeastern part of the United States. Versus the Crimson Tide out of Tuscaloosa, Alabama. The final score, Robert Morris had the Crimson Tide a run for their money, but they just came up short. Robert Morris Colonials 81, Alabama Crimson Tide 90. The Colonials, they had a good season. They really played their hearts out, but it wasn't enough to overcome the Alabama Crimson Tide. And you can check out the game recap on YouTube of NCAA March Madness on the first round and second rounds. It's right there. Just browse on the search engine and go on YouTube and check out the games itself of NCAA March Madness, including college women's basketball as well. Oh, wow. And here comes, let's see, another game. This one was an absolute close. This was so close. A game at absolute best, and it was really good. The Vanderbilt Commodores of the Southeastern Conference versus St. Mary Gales. If I spell that name right, it's capital Gales. Yeah, that's the name. But the scoreboard, it was close. Low scoring, but but the defense was absolutely perfected. The final score, Vanderbilt Commodores 56, St. Mary's Gales 59. 59. That's big. Yeah, that is a big one. A Southeastern Conference team losing to a mid-major or a school team, and that is St. Mary's. My gosh, that is just absolutely incredible, and you cannot. That is a team. That is a team. I mean, that is a really good team, but I will get to it like way later on. To the second round. Here comes another game. I think 2 more games left from Friday. And here comes the Xavier Musketeers and the Fighting Illini. So the scoreboard was not much of a difference or change, but the Musketeers did give their all. Out of the Big East Conference, they're from Cincinnati, Ohio. Xavier Musketeers 73, the Fighting Illini 86. And the Fighting Illini move on to the next round out of Central Illinois. And there you go, and it was there. Yeah. The Fighting Illini. Zach Fremantle, I mean, he was like one of the best basketball players, but it was just not enough to overcome the offensive power of the likes of the Fighting Illini out of Central Illinois. Yeah. I think the team out of I'm guessing it's got to be Champaign, Illinois, the Fighting Illini. You know, yeah. So that's got to be them. That's got to be them. And you think, isn't that the team from Peoria? No, that's from Champaign, Illinois, not Peoria. So, yeah, you got to look up to your geographical U.S. state maps. So, there you go. And finally, the last one for Fridays on the first round. The Troy Trojans and the Kentucky Wildcats. And this score was, kind of not even close. Troy Trojans 57, the Kentucky Wildcats 76. And the Wildcats move on to the second round. And now all these teams are completed, and now we're going on to the second round. In a round of 32, the first round was a round of 64. The first 4 games, 32 games, 16 games, 32, 48, 52 games in total for the entire week. 52 games. 52 games for one whole week, beginning from Tuesday to Sunday. Tuesday to Sunday. So now we go to the second round. We go to the second round right here. And now it begins the Creighton Blue Jays and the Auburn Tigers. The Creighton Blue Jays have displayed their absolute best in the second round, but the Auburn Tigers have the better hand over the Creighton Blue Jays. The Blue Jays just couldn't overcome the team out of Omaha, Nebraska. Creighton Blue Jays 70, Auburn Tigers 82. And the Auburn Tigers are going to the Sweet 16 into next week's, which is this week if you like to know, the second week of March Madness. And because the madness continues, it is out of control, but in control. When it calls March Madness, you don't mess with March Madness. All these games were on CBS, TBS, TNT, and True TV. And now, the games on a Saturday. The Michigan Wolverines and the Texas A&M Aggies. So guess what? The Big Ten Conference team versus a Southeastern Conference team. And it seems that the Big Ten Conference team has overcome the Southeastern Conference team. The Michigan Wolverines. Like the most high caliber team. Ugh. University of Michigan lies in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Ann Arbor, Michigan. So yeah, Ann Arbor, Michigan. And I'm guessing the Michigan State Spartans are from Lansing, Michigan? Of course, I could be wrong. I mean, yeah, well, I was right. They are from Easter. Okay, so the scoreboard. The Aggies try to come up with big time, but it was not enough for a high caliber seeded number 5 Wolverines. Michigan Wolverines 91, Texas A&M Aggies 79, and the Wolverines go to the Sweet 16. More of Saturday's games. The Arkansas Razorbacks and St. John's. Red Storm. Let's see, St. John's Red Storm. I would say, yeah, I think I know where they're from. St. John's University out of Jamaica, New York. No, not the country. I mean, the name of the country, but they're from New York, and it's like, what? If you want to know where from St. John's University is at, they're from, let's say, you know where Brooklyn is at? That is east of Brooklyn, New York. East of Brooklyn, New York. You know where the Bronx is at? Long Island, the big Long Island of New York. That itself, St. John's Red Storm. Of course, the Razorbacks overpowered the St. John's Red Storm. Sweet! And they overcame the St. John's Red Storm out of Jamaica, New York, and the Long Island, which is also home of the New York Islanders and the Brooklyn Nets. And also home of the New York Mets of Major League Baseball. Of course, St. John's University, it's like up north of JFK International Airport. It's right there. You can't miss it. It's right there, and you'll see it, why and how, and you'll know what I'm talking about. It's like, where exactly? It's right there. Buckaroo, that's where it's at. I mean, it's east of Brooklyn. You can't miss it if you go to St. John's University. So, St. John's losing to the Arkansas Razorbacks. Oh, my. And the Arkansas Razorbacks, they're from Fayetteville, Arkansas. Fayetteville, Arkansas. And you're saying, no, they're from Little Rock, Leo. Little Rock. Little Rock. Understand me, man. Understand me from the words that comes right out of my mouth. I know. I know. But they're from Fayetteville. There's like, I would say it's possibly like a several hours. I would say approximately 300 miles or 400 miles or 300 miles away from the state capital itself, from Little Rock, Arkansas. And yeah, that's how it is. And that's so the Razorbacks move on to the next round. The St. John's Red Storm out of Jamaica, New York. That's east of Brooklyn, New York, and the Long Island are going home. Now, the Drake Bulldogs. Like, please, you gotta tell me, where is the University of Drake? Stop hiding this from me and tell me. Oh, simple. I can give you an easy answer. They're from Des Moines, Iowa. Like, what? You heard me. They're from Des Moines, Iowa, the state capital itself. Duh. But isn't that where the Iowa State Cyclones are, from Ames, Iowa? Actually, Ames, Iowa is from western Iowa. And the Iowa Hawkeyes out of Iowa City, Iowa, they're from eastern Iowa, which is like not too far from Cedar Rapids, Iowa. So there you go. Drake University, home of the Bulldogs, not the Butler Bulldogs. I mean, there's University of Butler. I mean, they're from Indiana. So the Bulldogs of Drake University, despite their best efforts, it was not enough to overcome the Texas Tech Red Raiders out of Lubbock, Texas. The final score, the Drake Bulldogs 64, Texas Tech Red Raiders 77. The Texas Tech Red Raiders go to the Sweet 16. And like 4 more. My gosh. So yeah. Okay, now here's another game. All right. The BYU Cougars and the Wisconsin Badgers. BYU Cougars out of Provo, Utah, and the Wisconsin Badgers of Madison, Wisconsin. The game was absolutely pretty close. It was pretty close. It was a thriller. It was a thriller. And this game is a must-watch on the highlights reel, on the game recap on YouTube. Just look it up for NCAA March Madness. You'll see the recaps of the first 4, the first round, and the second round. The second round is a round of 32. So guess what? The final score, BYU Cougars 91, Wisconsin Badgers 89. Wow, 2 great high-caliber teams. Cougars out of BYU. Now they are members of the Big 12 Conference team, defeating a Big 10 Conference team in the second round. The BYU Cougars out of Provo, Utah, finally getting to go to the Sweet 16 for the first time. Wow! Give credit to the Wisconsin Badgers. They played their hearts out, and they just came up short by 2 points. But what an effort for the Wisconsin Badgers. Well done by the Wisconsin Badgers. Give credit to them. They really know how to play it. They know how to play it out. And okay. Now 3 more games out of the second round from Saturday. UCLA Bruins and out of Los Angeles. And the Tennessee Volunteers out of Knoxville, Tennessee. An Atlantic Coast Conference team versus a Southeastern Conference team. The score itself was kind of interesting, but one team tried to overcome that team, but it was not enough. I know they made it to the Final Four back then, but they just can't come up with the finish. The final score: UCLA Bruins 58, Tennessee Volunteers 67, and they move on to the Sweet 16. The Tennessee Volunteers, they are. And now here comes the McNeese State Cowboys and the Purdue Boilermakers. And you're saying, please, can you at least tell me where is McNeese State are from? Please tell me. Okay, they're from Lake Charles, Louisiana. Like, what? Lake Charles, Louisiana? Where is that? Okay, do you know where Beaumont, Texas is at? Yeah, tell me that. Where's Beaumont, Texas? You know where that is? You know where Beaumont, Texas? The state line of Texas and Louisiana, right there. If you go on Interstate 10, you're like it's a 2-hour drive from Beaumont to Lake Charles, Louisiana. McNeese State Cowboys. That's where they're from. And what about the Purdue Boilermakers? Well, why is it called Purdue, and why are they from out of the name? Shouldn't it be from the city of Indiana? Yes, they're from the city of Indiana. They're from West Lafayette. They're from Lafayette, Indiana. Yes, in the Midwest. Lafayette, Indiana. Not too far, but possibly like approximate 2-hour drive from Indianapolis to Lafayette. So there you go. Lafayette. A team out of Lafayette, Indiana, and then a team from McNeese Cowboys out of Lake Charles, Louisiana, about approximately a 2-hour drive or a 90-minute hour, or an hour's drive from Beaumont, Texas. So there you go. The McNeese Cowboys and the Purdue Boilermakers, despite being the big surprise in the smallest package, the McNeese Cowboys cannot overcome the Purdue Boilermakers. The final score: McNeese State Cowboys 62, Purdue Boilermakers 76, and the Boilermakers go to the Sweet 16 again. So here we go again. So, the Gonzaga Bulldogs and the Houston Cougars. A top dog and the top feline cat. Gonzaga Bulldogs out of Spokane, Washington, of the West Coast Conference team. The Houston Cougars out of the Big 12 Conference team. And of their high-caliber basketball team in the Texas Tropics. The score was pretty close. Despite everything of what one team has to offer, this team just got the better of it. The final score: the Gonzaga Bulldogs 76, Houston Cougars 81. The Houston Cougars go on to the Sweet 16, and the Gonzaga Bulldogs are not going to the Sweet 16. But what a great effort for the Gonzaga Bulldogs and head coach Mark Few. They put everything on the line, but it was just not enough. Great basketball team for the Gonzaga Bulldogs, but not enough to overcome the Houston Cougars. And as their season comes to an end, they go back home. But great effort for the Gonzaga Bulldogs. What an effort. And now for yesterday's games, and that would be Sundays. So, Old Miss, Rebels, and the Iowa State Cyclones. Old Miss, Old Miss. You want to tell me, where's Old Miss from? I want to know, man. Stop hiding this from me. Oh, they're from University, Mississippi. Like, what? You're making that up. I'm not. I'm not making it up. Oh, really? You think I'm making this up? Find the city of Memphis, Tennessee, and head southeast, and you'll know what I'm talking about. Passing over from or going around Sardis Lake. And then you'll know what I'm talking about. So University, Mississippi, the Ole Miss Rebels. I don't know who the mascot is, but if they have Admiral Akbar from Star Wars, which is a Rebel Alliance thing, which I don't mind, but whatever. There you go. Iowa State Cyclones out of Ames, Iowa. And the score was, well, not much. But the final score is the Old Miss Rebels 91, the Iowa State Cyclones 78, and they call themselves a high-seeded team? Really? The Rebels have became the better team? It's like, wow. A Big 12 conference team to high-seeded caliber losing to the Old Miss Rebels out of the Southeastern Conference? Really? I mean, that is just absolutely downtrodden for what I'm looking upon. It is just absolutely embarrassing. I mean, come on, man. You've got to do better. You've got to do better than this. I mean, really. I mean, come on, dude. You know you can do this, but no. Listen to this. It's do or do not. Do or do not. There is no try because you do or do not. Do or do not. Okay, and now from another game from yesterday is the New Mexico Lobos out of Albuquerque, New Mexico, and the Michigan State Spartans of Lansing, Michigan. And despite the efforts for a low-seeded team from the big surprise in the smallest package, it was just not enough to overcome the Michigan State Spartans. The New Mexico Lobos 63, Michigan State Spartans 71. The Michigan State Spartans go to the Sweet 16, and the New Mexico Lobos once again can't get to the Sweet 16 for another year. Wow. There goes your Mountain West Conference team, and they are oh so gone. There's another game from yesterday. The Colorado State Rams out of Fort Collins, Colorado, and the Maryland Terrapins. Now you're going to say, please, can you tell me where the University of Maryland is at? I could. So, you know what? I'm going to look it up for you if you like. Okay. Where is it? Where is it, Buckaroo? I'll tell you. They're out of College Park, Maryland. Duh. Really? Where's that? You know where the nation's capital is at? Well, yeah. The nation's capital. You know, like Washington, D.C. Yes. Well, if you head northeast, the University of Maryland is not too far from the nation's capital of Washington, D.C. Just head northwest of there and you are there. Really? Yes. And then east of it is the NASA Goddard Visitor Center. Hooray! That is where you go to find the University of Maryland, right there. So there you go. If you know what I'm talking about, you know where to go to. The nation's capital and the state capital of Baltimore, Maryland. So there you go. Washington, D.C. and the state capital. No, not Baltimore. That's Annapolis, Maryland. Not Baltimore's not the state capital. That's a big major city. So yeah, Annapolis, Maryland is the state capital. So so there you go. It's on the triangle itself. Baltimore, Washington, D.C., and Annapolis, Maryland. The Mid-Atlantic states. This was an absolute close game. The Colorado State Rams and the Maryland Terrapins fighting back to back until one team takes the lead, the other team retakes the lead, one team retakes the lead again, the other team retakes the lead again, and it's just madness. They don't call it NCAA March Madness for nothing. But guess what? This was an absolute thriller. The final score, Colorado State Rams 71, Maryland Terrapins 72. The Terrapins winning by 1 point. And it was just wow. Give credit to the Colorado State Rams out of Fort Collins, Colorado. I mean, my goodness. They played their hearts out. Hands down, and there is no other team. No team is ever going to take this away from the Colorado State Rams. They deserve to win, but losing by 1, that is a heartbreaker. It comes to the end of their season as a Mountain West Conference team losing to a Big Ten Conference team. These two teams are one of the absolute best. Give credit to the Colorado State Rams. They played their hearts out. And nothing is ever going to take this away from them. Nothing. They have their one shiny moment, everything. Nothing is going to take them away. Nothing. And you know what? They're going to come back again next year stronger than ever. And trust me, when it comes to the Rams, you know that they really know how to make this work. They really know how to make this work. The Terrapins go to the Sweet 16. And now here's another thriller. The Yukon Huskies, the defending national champions, Yukon Huskies, out of Connecticut itself. Wow. They're from Storrs, Connecticut. You heard me. They're from Storrs, Connecticut. Storrs, Connecticut. It's how is that possible? They're from Storrs, Connecticut. They're like east of Hartford, Connecticut. So the Yukon Huskies, right there, as the defending national champions versus the Florida Gators out of the Southeastern Conference. And they're from Gainesville, Florida. I know where they're from, Gainesville. I know where Gainesville, Florida is. Somehow the Florida Gators and the Huskies are going back to back to back to back to back. First half was a tie at 31 points. The second half was tie at 44 points. And it's a total combination of 75 points. One team has to get 77, and that was the Florida Gators. The UConn Huskies down by 2, and they try to score a 2-pointer to tie the game, or 3 for the win, and somehow they couldn't make it in the final seconds, and time has run out on that game recap, and wow, what a thriller. The Florida Gators and the UConn Huskies, unbelievable, another thriller. The final score, UConn Huskies 75, Florida Gators 77. The Gators have knocked out the UConn Huskies out of Storrs, Connecticut, the defending champions. This means the defending champions are gone. We're going to have a new national champion out of the Sweet 16 to the Elite 8 to the Final Four, and it's not the UConn Huskies. It's going to be another team who will take place as the new national champions. The Florida Gators overcame a high-caliber team, and that is the UConn Huskies out of Storrs, Connecticut. Give credit to the UConn Huskies. They played their hearts out, but as time expired, that they knew that time was running out. It was just not enough to overcome the likes of the UConn Huskies, and the Florida Gators out of Gainesville, Florida, were the better team to overcome this high-powered offensive caliber team, and that is the UConn Huskies. But congratulations to UConn, the University of Connecticut out of Storrs, Connecticut. You were absolutely amazing, and for that I commend you. I commend you. Wow, it is just absolutely amazing, and it's just incredible. It is just absolutely incredible. And now there's only like 4 more games left of the second round from yesterday. The Baylor Bears out of Waco, Texas, and the Duke Blue Devils. They're from Durham, North Carolina, if you like to go. If you like to know. If you like to go there and like to know, or Bo. And not too far from Duke University is UNC. So yeah, not too far from it itself. Oh. University of North Carolina. And along with Duke University, they're not too far from each other. And you want to know why? Because these two schools are right next to each other, like BYU and Utah, the same thing. And so, not too far from each other, BYU and Utah, UNC and Duke, both rival teams. And who is the better team? I have no idea, but it's a rivalry that will never get old. It is a rivalry that will never get old. So, but instead of that, we're talking about the Baylor Bears. The score, however, was not even close. The final score was Baylor Bears 66, Duke Blue Devils 89. The Blue Devils go to the Sweet 16, and the Baylor Bears out of Waco, Texas, are officially eliminated. And goodbye. And also from another yesterday's game, the Oregon Ducks out of Eugene, Oregon, and the the Arizona Wildcats, not Kentucky, sorry. I'll get to that one. Arizona Wildcats out of Tucson, Arizona. This game was absolutely close, but it was just not enough to overcome a team because that team was the better team. A Big 10 conference team versus Big 12 conference team. And the final score, the Oregon Ducks 83, Arizona Wildcats 87. The Wildcats became the better team out of the mountain region, out of the Big 12 conference. And for that, they move on to the Sweet 16, and the Oregon Ducks season comes to an end as they will try again next season. But what a match. With 2 games left out of the second round of yesterday's games on a Sunday. Mount St. Mary's, California. I mean, oh. I know there's like a bunch of St. Mary's. Like, which St. Mary's? Which St. Mary's are you talking about? St. Mary's College out of, let's see, Moraga, California. Moraga, California. Like, what? Are you making this up? No, I'm not. If only I was, but I'm not. Moraga, California. Okay, so where's that? Okay, do you know where the city of Oakland, California is at? And you know where Berkeley is? You know, the California Bears there. So in the mountain part of that mountain region of, you know, where St. Mary's College of California is in, it's in Moraga, California there, and then it's right there. So it's it's east of Oakland, California. East of Oakland. That's how far when you have to go to Moraga, California. That is east of Oakland, California. And there you go. You're in the California area, and that's, yeah. Right next to is a mountain region called Mount Diablo. And like, what? Are you making this up? No, I wish I was, but I'm not. It's there. I don't know why they call it that mountain, like Mount Diablo, and like Devil's Mountain. Really? Yeah. I mean, there's some names that's kind of like, why in the heaven's name will they put the names such as that? I don't know, but it's there because it's not. That's how it is, and that's how you're gonna get to it. And in that mountain region, that's east of Oakland and between Oakland and Stockton, California. So there you go. However, the score itself was not much difference for the St. Mary's Gales. St. Mary's Gales, if you like to know. St. Mary's Gales. So, yeah. And guess what? It was just not enough for St. Mary's Gales. The Crimson Tide out of Tuscaloosa, Alabama got the better. The final score, St. Mary's Gales 66, Alabama Crimson Tide 80, and the Crimson Tide are going to the Sweet 16. And now finally the last game of yesterday's, the Fighting Illini from Champaign, Illinois, and the Kentucky Wildcats. Yes! The University of Kentucky. They're from Lexington, dudes! Lexington! I thought it was Frankfurt, that's the state. No, it's the state capital itself is Frankfurt. What? Look it up! I'm sorry. I just can't help myself when it comes to this, when someone gets the name wrong. It's like, are you sure you're not making this up? No, I'm not. Just look it up and you'll see it. Of the Bluegrass State. Oh. Oh my goodness. So, the Fighting Illini and the Kentucky Wildcats. A Big Ten Conference team versus a Southeastern Conference team. And guess, the scoreboard was there. The Fighting Illini tried to catch up with the Kentucky Wildcats, but it was not enough. The final score, the Fighting Illini, University of Illinois, the Fighting Illini 75, the Kentucky Wildcats 84, and they move on to out of the second round into the Sweet 16 itself. And that is all of your first 4 games, the first round and the second rounds of NCAA March Madness of college men's basketball. And the teams from the Sweet 16 are now set. We got 4 games on Friday. 4 games on Friday is the Michigan Wolverines and the Auburn Tigers. And the Ole Miss Rebels and the Michigan State Spartans. High-seeded teams. Number 5 versus number 1. Number 6 versus number 2. That's Friday's games. More of Thursday's games. That's part 1. And then Thursday's games are part 1. The Arkansas Razorbacks. Number 10 seeded team versus the Texas Tech Red Raiders out of Lubbock, Texas, facing up against the Razorbacks out of Lafayette, Arkansas. And then you have the Maryland Terrapins versus the Florida Gators. Number 4 versus number 1. And now part 2 of Thursdays and Fridays basketball games. Arizona Wildcats versus the number 1 seeded team of the Duke Blue Devils. So, team from Tucson versus a team from Durham, North Carolina. The BYU Cougars out of Provo and the Alabama Crimson Tide out of Tuscaloosa, Alabama. And then Friday's games of part 2. The Kentucky Wildcats out of Lexington, Kentucky versus the Tennessee Volunteers out of Knoxville. It's both teams of the Southeastern Conference team. SEC teams. Wow. The Purdue Boilermakers versus the Houston Cougars. Oh my, there are not that many teams left. 16 teams left in total, and both of these all these games will be on CBS and TBS. Of course, there is a backup channel which will be on True TV if that works, unless something goes wrong during a blackout, and it'll keep things in tabs, and that would be on True TV. So games will be on, well, you know. So guess what? So I'm going to explain this quickly. the Sweet 16 and the Elite 8. That's a total of 4 games and a total of 8. And then the Elite 8, 2 games on a Saturday, 2 games on a Sunday. And it'll take you down to the Final 4. And guess what? That's a total of 12 games from Thursday to Friday. Thursday to Friday. Total of 12 games, Thursday to Friday, of NCAA March Madness. The madness continues on. Who goes on and who goes home to the season that comes to their end? I have no idea. But we are going to get closer and closer. So all the games on CBS and TBS of those games from the Sweet 16 and the Elite 8. Thursday to Sunday in week 2. And the madness continues. Oh, wow. So I know that the first 4 has already been played for the college women's basketball, but a lot of it around, I mean, it is just absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. And you know what? Nothing makes me happier than to see how this goes. But you know what? I'm really glad. I mean, enjoying. I'm gonna stay. Am I going to keep on enjoying the ride of NCAA March Madness? Yes. Whoever says I'm gonna have to stop. Not this guy right here. Not this guy. Not this guy right here. So. You got games on TBS and CBS. And if there's a blackout, it can be watched on True TV and also can watch on NCAA March Madness Live on the website. Unless you have a TV provider, that is. Then you have the Elite 8 out of the 8 teams. And we're going down to the Final 4 of who's it going to be. And to be honest, I have no idea. But I'll tell you this. It is an absolute moment maker or a moment breaker. I don't think there won't be another. Teams that try to do this will never be repeated in any way, and you know why? It just goes to show you that when it comes to March Madness, it is just complete madness. It is complete madness. So once I'm going to look at the official bracket. The official bracket. So, Sweet 16 games on TBS and CBS. And of course, an affiliate channel on True TV. Then we go to the Elite 8. Of who are the Elite 8 will win in that region. And once this happens, it'll be on CBS and TBS as well. And then we go to the Final 4, and that would be in the national championship. And all these games, 3 games only in San Antonio, Texas. And I do believe that would be the end of my live stream of talking about the NCAA March Madness. And now the games are set and ready to go for the Sweet 16. I would say everybody gets like almost like a 4.5 day break. Because you know how March Madness is. Only 16 teams remain until we cut it down in half, and then cut it in half again, and cut it in half, and only one team who is the number one team in the country. And that would be it. So, yeah. I hope you guys, or for those or anybody watching this live stream as much as I do, gets a kick out of this. And also, thank you guys for watching. So don't forget to like, comment, favorite, and subscribe. And tell me, what do you guys think of NCAA March Madness, of college men's basketball, not to mention college women's basketball, because I know by the time this recording's over during a live stream or whatnot, they already finished the second round, and now they're in their Sweet 16 and going to the Elite 8. And they will have a total of 12 games as well. So March Madness continues on throughout the weekend for 5 days straight, both men's and women's college basketball. And then we go to the final week of the Final Four and to the top 2. Who is in and who is out. That's all I can say, and that's what it's all about. As your main owner and founder of this entire channel, who likes to take chances, making mistakes, and getting messy, who likes peanut butter and chocolate and or breakfast for dinner, but also when it comes to basketball, it is a tool to honor God. If you win, you praise him. If you lose, you praise him. Either way, we honor God with our actions and our words. We honor and give the glory to Jesus Christ himself, for he is the one true God when it comes to him. And that is the reason why when you do basketball, flag football, mixed martial arts, give the honor and glory to God, Jesus Christ himself, the one that began all with no end. So anyways, Godspeed, play safe, and shalom. Remember to fight with honor, love, truth, and justice, and I'll see you guys on this week's live stream of WWE 2K25 NXT Stand and Deliver of the Women's Division Part 2 this week. As well as, also the next week I will be doing again with a live stream again next week over the Sweet 16, the Elite 8, and who are the Final 4 in. So there you go. So anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Have a great rest of your day and or evening. Until then, I got one more thing to say. It's always this before I end the live stream. Yeet! Woo! See ya!